You walked out of that interview light. You were warm. You were honest. You told them the real story, the one that never made it onto your resume. Christine smiled. Marcus nodded twice. You shook hands, you got in your car, and you texted someone that you nailed it. 3 days later, the email lands. We have decided to move forward with other candidates. So you replay the whole thing in your head. You were likable. You were qualified. You were yourself. You cannot find the moment it went wrong because there wasn't one. Nothing went wrong in the conversation. That is the problem. It was never a conversation. While you were talking, Christine was filling out a form. Every question she asked had a hidden column next to it, and every answer you gave got a quiet little number written down. You did not spend an hour bonding with a new colleague. You sat an exam, and nobody told you it was graded. I'm going to show you the exact grid they score you on. Then I'm going to show you how to read that grid before you ever walk in the room. It feels like a conversation by design. The coffee, the small talk, the easy, "So tell me a bit about yourself." That softness is not them being nice to you. It is the cleanest possible way to watch how you think when you have stopped performing. Because under the friendly tone, there is a sheet of paper. On that sheet, there is a list. The list is not improvised in the moment, and it is not personal to you. It is the same list for every single person who walks through that door for this role. 5 items, maybe 6. Next to each one, an empty box waiting for a rating. Marcus decided what went on that list weeks ago, before the job was even posted. So when you sit down, you are not being met. You are being measured against a ruler that was cut to length before you applied. Here is the part that stings. The warm ones, the people who wing it, the ones who walk in believing that being liked is enough, they are improvising against a fixed scorecard they cannot see, and they lose. They lose to the candidate who was duller in the room, less charming, more forgettable, but who landed every item on the list. Being likable gets you into the chair. The grid decides everything after that. So let me show you the grid. Once you can see it, the entire interview changes shape in front of you. The grid has a name. The people who build it call them competencies. And a competency is not a skill on your resume. It is a behavior. Communicates clearly across different audiences, takes action without waiting to be told, turns a vague strategy into a real plan. They sound soft and fuzzy when you say them out loud, but these behaviors are the spine that holds up the whole company. Competencies are the private language of human resources. They are how the company decides who gets hired, who gets promoted, who gets quietly managed toward the door, and who gets put on a leadership track. The interview is simply the first time that language ever gets pointed at you. And every competency comes with a scale. At the bottom sits the person who freezes, who overplans, who waits for someone else to move first. In the middle, the person who is solid and reliable. At the top, the person who moves fast and clean when everything is on fire and the deadline is tonight. There is even a level for too much of a good thing. The person who charges in so fast, they skip the part where they think. When you answer a question, Christine is not deciding pass or fail. She is deciding where on that scale to place you. She is moving a marker up or down a line you cannot see. And after you leave, here is what happens to those markers. The people who interviewed you do not gather in a room and ask, who did we like the most? They sit down with their sheets and compare them, box by box, competency by competency. Your warmth, your easy rapport with Christine, the joke that landed, none of it has a box on the grid, so none of it gets counted. The offer goes to the highest total on the scorecard, not the warmest memory in the room. You can win every heart in that building and still lose on paper. Now here is the reveal that changes the whole game. That grid is not locked in a vault somewhere in the HR department. It is printed in public. It is sitting on the job post you already read. Last time, I showed you that the job post tells you the role, that the responsibilities section is a confession of the pain Marcus is trying to make stop. This is the harder, better truth. The same post, read one more way, tells you the questions you are going to be asked. So let me build it in front of you. Marcus posts an operations role, 5 lines in the responsibilities. Watch what each one turns into. Line 1. Be the bridge between the floor team and the leadership group. That is not a duty. That is the communication competency in a costume. So the question is almost guaranteed. Tell me about a time you carried the same message to 2 completely different audiences. Line 2. Take a company goal and drive it to the finish line. That is planning and execution, which becomes, tell me about a time you turned a big strategy into smaller milestones and shipped it. Line 3. Find what is slow and make it faster. That is process improvement, which becomes, Tell me about a time you rebuilt a process that somebody else designed. Line 4. Hold the room when things break. That is composure under pressure, which becomes, tell me about a time everything fell apart at once and you had to act. Line 5. Work across marketing, product, and finance. That is moving people who do not report to you, which becomes, tell me about a time you got people you had no authority over to follow your lead. 5 lines, 5 competencies, 5 questions. You watched me reverse engineer most of the interview from a job post, sitting at a desk with no inside information. Marcus handed you the exam and you read past it looking for buzzwords. So let me take you inside 3 of those questions, the ones almost everyone walks into blind, and show you exactly what is being scored. Start with the one that opens nearly every interview. So tell me about yourself. You think it is an icebreaker, a throat clear before the real questions. So you do the natural thing. You walk them through your resume, top to bottom, in order, like you are reading a timetable out loud. I started here, then I moved here, then I did this for 3 years, then I came here. You wasted the single most powerful moment of the entire interview. Because this is the one and only stretch where you control 100% of the narrative. Nobody is steering. You decide what to emphasize, what to cut, what to skip, and where to point the whole thing. And while you point it, Christine is scoring one simple thing. Does this person's story bend toward our role, or does it sprawl out in every direction? The robot who recites the resume scores low on focus and low on communication in the first 90 seconds before the real questions even start. The candidate who treats this as a trailer for the rest of the conversation scores high. So here is the shape that works. 4 quick beats, and every single one aimed at Marcus. Open with why you do this work, the reason you get out of bed for it, then where you are right now, with one win that matters, then where you have been, with one more win, then where you are going, and make where you are going look exactly like this job. Ashley does not say, I graduated in 2018, then I joined a small agency, then I moved to a bigger one. Ashley says, what gets me up in the morning is taking a messy process and making it quiet, so the people around me can do their best work. Right now I run operations for a 40-person team, and last year I cut our project turnaround by 1/3. Before that, I learned the craft inside one of the most chaotic markets there is. And the reason this role caught my eye is that it is the exact thing I do best, pointed at a bigger stage. 4 beats, 60 seconds, every one of them landing on the grid. Now the big one. The question that fills in most of the scorecard. Tell me about a time. These are called behavioral questions, and they exist because of one cold piece of logic. The strongest predictor of how you will behave in the future is how you behaved in the past. So, Marcus does not care what you say you would do. Talk is free. He asks what you did. This is where most of the grid gets filled in, one story at a time. And this is where good candidates quietly bleed out. Here is the trap. You get asked about a time, and you tell the story, but you leave yourself out of it. You spend 3 minutes painting the setup, the company, the background, the office politics. By the time you reach what you did, you have 10 seconds left. You say, we the whole way through, so Christine cannot tell what was you and what was the team. You ramble. You forget the number. You made the company look great, and you made yourself invisible. So let me give you the shape of an answer that scores 4 beats again. The setup in 2 sentences, no more, then what you did, and what matters more, why you chose to do it that way. Then the result, with a real number attached. Then what you took away from it, the lesson you would carry straight into Marcus's team. Keep the setup short. Spend your time on what you did. That is the part being graded. Let me build one in front of you so you hear the gap. Marcus asks Ashley about a time she hit a wall. The weak version opens like this. So, our team was under a lot of pressure that quarter. There was a reorg. 2 managers left. The tools kept changing. 3 minutes in, and there is still no Ashley anywhere in the story. Here is the version that scores. Setup, 2 sentences. Last spring, a key client threatened to walk a week before renewal, and saving the account was on me. Then what she did, and why. I pulled the usage data myself instead of waiting on the analytics team because I needed to know in hours, not days, where they had stopped using the product. I found 3 features they had never been shown, so I ran a personal walkthrough with their team that Friday. Then the result, with a number. They renewed, and they grew the contract by 20% the next quarter. Then the lesson, aimed straight at Marcus. What it taught me is that a quiet client is not a lost client. They are an uninformed one, and that is the instinct I would bring to your accounts. 60 seconds. One problem, one decision, one number, one lesson. Christine does not write down nice communicator. She writes down high in the box that says owns problems under pressure, because Ashley showed her the behavior instead of claiming it. And there is a reason a story beats a list, a reason that has nothing to do with charm. When you give Christine a list of duties, it is gone by the time she reaches the parking lot. Her brain files it under information and dumps it. But when you give her a story, with a problem and a decision and a number at the end, something different happens. She does not only hear it, she runs it. Her mind simulates the night the system went down, and you were the last one in the building. She lives a few seconds of it. And people do not forget the things they have lived. Christine forgets your bullet points. She remembers the night the system crashed and what you did about it. That memory is what she carries into the room where they decide. And here is a detail almost nobody prepares for. They will not only ask about your wins. For every competency, there is a second question waiting. Tell me about a time it went wrong. The conflict, the failure, the difficult person, the project that died. They ask for the disaster on purpose, because how you talk about your worst day tells them more than how you talk about your best one. If you only bring triumphs, you score low on self-awareness the moment they ask for the scar. Third question. The one everyone dreads. What is your biggest weakness? You think it is an honesty test, so you do one of two things, and both of them lose. You either confess something fatal, like I get nervous talking to strangers for a sales job, or you reach for the polished lie. I am a perfectionist. I care too much. I work too hard. The moment that lands, Christine writes down one word. Rehearsed. She has heard the perfectionist line 1,000 times, and you failed the real test, which was never about your weakness at all. Because this question is two things wearing one mask. It is a self-awareness probe, and it is a lie detector. They want to see whether you know where your edges are, and whether you will tell the truth when there is a little pressure on you. The specific weakness barely matters. The honesty and the ownership are the entire score. So here is the move. 3 beats. Name a real gap, but one that will not sink you in this role. Nothing from the core requirements. Then say why it matters to fix, not why it is secretly a strength in disguise. Then show the concrete thing you are already doing about it. Kevin does not say he is a perfectionist. Kevin says, speaking up in big rooms has been a real gap for me. There was a company-wide meeting where I had a solid idea and I sat on it, and someone else pitched something close to it a month later and got the credit. That stung enough to push me to do something about it. I have been asking my manager to throw me into more presentations, and I run the weekly team stand-up now. It still makes me nervous, and it gets easier every week. Real gap, real proof, owned. That answer scores higher than any perfect on paper lie, because the thing being measured was whether you would be straight with them. There is one more probe most people fail without noticing, and it usually comes at the end. Why do you want this job? Why should we hire you? It sounds like a polite wrap-up. It is the fit score. They are checking whether you decoded the company the way I showed you last time, or whether you would say the same lines to any employer with a logo. The candidate who reflects back the exact problem the company is trying to solve scores high. The candidate who says you seem like a great place to grow scores like everyone else. So put the whole picture together. You walk into a graded test that was sitting in plain sight on the job post. You improvise against a fixed grid you never bothered to read. And you hand the job to the warmer, more boring, better prepared candidate because they answered the scorecard and you answered the vibe in the room. And it gets worse than losing. Sometimes you win. Sometimes you charm your way through on the parts of you that had nothing to do with the role. You get the offer. And 6 months later, you are drowning in duties you never decoded, in a job that was never built for the person you are. Either way, the cost of walking in blind gets paid. The only question is when. So here is what you do instead. And the instinct is going to fight me on this. The instinct is to go find the 50 most common interview questions and memorize an answer for each one. Do not do that. It is the worst possible move. You will sound like the exact thing that tanks the weakness question, rehearsed and canned, and the one question you did not memorize will fall on your head like a brick. You are not going to prepare answers. You are going to build the grid. Step 1. Before the interview, take the job post apart, line by line, the way I showed you a minute ago. Find the 5 competencies hiding inside the bullet points. Write them down on one page. That page is their scorecard, rebuilt from the outside. Step 2. Turn each competency into the question it is about to become. Communicates across levels becomes, tell me about a time you got a message across to different audiences. Now, you are not guessing the questions. You are holding their question sheet. Step 3, and this is the part people skip. For each competency, do not write a speech. Pick one true story, the setup, what you did, the number, the lesson. Then pick a second story for the same competency, the time it went sideways, because they ask for the disaster too. Walk in with both, the triumph and the wreck, for every box on the grid. So you never memorize a single answer. You carry a small bank of real stories, and you let Christine reach in and pull whichever one she wants. Whatever she asks, you already have the story, and the story already lands on her grid. You stop performing, and you start scoring. You walk into that room holding their scoring sheet. They simply do not know you can see it. So go back to the car. The handshake, the easy drive home, the text that said you nailed it. You were not bad in there. That was never the issue. You brought a conversation to a test, and they graded the test, and you never saw the paper. Now you know where the paper is. It is the job post. The resume got you past the machine. The post told you what the role truly was, and the same post, read one more time, hands you the grid and the questions before you ever sit down. There is one room left in this building. After the questions, after the grid, after they decide they want you, there is the moment where they say a number, and you say a number back, and you think right then that you are guessing in the dark. You are not guessing. They have a scorecard for that number too, and it was written before you walked in. I will show you the number game next.